Iceland held a referendum on March the 6th on government plans to repay debts from the collapse of Icesave Bank. 93% of Iceland's citizens that voted in the referendum voted against their government repaying more than 3.8 billion euros to Britain and the Netherlands, which is equivalent to each person contributing 99 euros a month for 8 years. To find out more, we are joined on the line by Birgitta Jonsdottir, a member of Icelandic Parliament for the movement. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, does the no vote mean that the citizens of Iceland completely refuse to pay back the amount, or have they refused the package in its current form?
They have refused the package in its current form. Apparently assets that belong to the old bank that are supposed to be covering most of this. And we offered to pay the shortfall, but the British and the Dutch refused that. So I think in general, the national referendum was about that we refused to bail out the bankers. But at the same time, we are, of course, willing to do whatever we can to ensure that the British and the Dutch will get back the money on fair terms. We're just not willing to let them make a profit on this.
Now, does the no vote strengthen the government's hand in negotiations with Britain and the Netherlands?
Yes, I think so. I mean, now they are not only negotiating on behalf of the parties, but also on behalf of the nation, of these 125,000 people out of 300,000 people that said no.
Now, after this overwhelming opposition to government proposals for the repayment in this form, what is your government planning to do now?
Well, it's actually quite strange. It feels, on the one hand, as if nothing's happened, in their opinion, and on the other hand, the general public in Iceland has become aware of what national referendums means and what other things we should call for. When it comes to negotiations, I think they are going to try to carry on with where we were before, but the British and the Dutch keep giving ultimatums that puts them in a very difficult position. Like they said that their offer was final and best. So they have put themselves in a bit of a difficult position because we can't accept the final and best offer they offered us. So I am frankly not sure what will happen. But we are going to go and meet with our colleagues at the British Parliament, hopefully in about 10 days, just to explain that this has to be taken to a political level. This cannot be solved in the financial ministries through playing with numbers.
Now, the Greek people are saying that they don't want to be penalized for the government's failure to rein in spending, the excesses of a few banks and corrupt politicians. Is this how the people of Iceland feel?
Exactly. And I think that in general, all over the world, people are starting to realize that you cannot run your society in such a sense that when things are going well for the bankers, they get all the profits. But once their pawn-sized schemes collapse, then we, the taxpayers, are supposed to bail them out. It is just, it's time to put an end to that.
Is Iceland contemplating to turn to the International Monetary Fund for help?
Well, we are unfortunately in an IMF program, which in a sense we were forced to go into by various steps. But one of the reasons we had to go on the program was that during the complete financial meltdown in October 2008, when all our big banks collapsed, the British government decided to use the Terrorist Act on us, a new legislation that they were using for the first time. And what that did was that all loan lines and all credit lines were closed to Iceland. And we were basically looking into a very serious situation where we were facing food shortages and medicine shortages in the country because we are an island. So it's not easy to go to your fellow neighbor and deal with that sort of situation. So they demanded that we would go into, and the European Union demanded, or all the countries that said, okay, we'll help you, but you have to go into the IMF program. And going into an IMF program, before we joined it, went into the program, the IMF was nearly redundant, and everybody that studies their history of help know that it often makes the recession even worse because of their policies. It functions in some countries, but I've so far been looking far and write for a success story from an IMF program, and I haven't found any.
How do you believe this issue should be handled?
Like with the Icesave and the IMF and the serious nature of the financial collapse in Iceland, I think that we, being a very small nation, there are only 317,000 people in Iceland. Obviously, we need aid from people with more expertise in dealing with these gigantic international infrastructures like the IMF and the World Bank and nations that are known to be colonist nations. So I think we need to make a plan B. How can maybe we should join nations that are facing similar problems, should join hands together and find a joint solution.
Now, Iceland has submitted an application. It was submitted last July to join the European Union. Will this application effectively be on hold until the Icesave issue is resolved?
Well, the EU leadership has said that this should not be connected. However, the British and the Dutch have been threatening to block our application if we don't do like they would like us to do. General, to make them actually have profit out of this Icesave debate. And bearing in mind the way things were in Iceland during the collapse, I mean, everybody was actually, all the general body of government and bureaucrats were in a state of shock, just trying to scramble. It was like we had a natural disaster, just trying to keep the country afloat, and at the same time having to deal with the terrorist act and extreme threats from the British and the Dutch, I think made people promise things that they couldn't possibly keep.
Do the people of Iceland want to join the European Union?
No.
Why? Why is that?
I think the way we've been bullied and blackmailed by the British and the Dutch through the EU, like I was reading documents that were leaked to wikileaks.org from notes from an ECOFIN meeting where it was obvious that the EU member states, in the name of EU, would lift the blocking of the IMF program to Iceland if we would accept not going, for example, to courts with Icesave. Because there's a huge legal debate and dispute if the nation should be dealing with this, or if this should be, this happened because of law in EU and EEA regulations. So people were actually just blackmailed into, the representatives of Iceland were blackmailed into handling this in a way that was not in the best interest of the nation. So this has made, the Icesave dispute has made Icelanders very skeptical about the EU and all this talk about the friendship between nations and so forth, if they treat us at the same time in that manner.
I'd like to thank you so much for joining us on Athens International Radio.
Thank you, and all my support to the Greek people in their struggle, and I encourage them to actually do like we did, to make a party with the people, not politicians, to get into the Greek Parliament.
I thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was Birgitta Jonsdottir. She's a member of Icelandic Parliament for the movement.